Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's presentation. My name is Marissa, an attorney with Legal Aid of North Carolina's Helpline. Today we have Allison Young presenting for us. If you are unfamiliar with the format of this event, first, Allison is going to review a PowerPoint presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. If at any point during the presentation you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box on Zoom or the comments section on Facebook. We'll review all questions put in the chat boxes during the Q&A session at the end. Please remember that this is a public forum and legal aid is not representing you at this time. Allison will go over this in more detail, but please remember to keep your questions as general as possible, as we cannot provide any legal advice specific to your individual situation. The session will end when there are no more questions, and regardless of where we are, we will have a hard stop at 4:30 p.m. With all that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Allison to get us started.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to be looking today at a very simple presentation about ways that you yourself can seek a divorce without the assistance of an attorney. My name is Allison Young. I'm a managing attorney of a couple of legal aid offices in North Carolina. We have an office in Sanford and an office in Carrboro, but there's a very good chance that we have an office that is close to where you are. You can check our website to see our office locations. You can call our helpline. We also have the ability that if you need assistance for you to apply for services online. These are just some of the things that we help with. I know all of you here today are here to listen and ask questions about divorce, but we do cover a wide range of legal services for folks who might need them. And so we are, you can see that we do everything from veterans assistance to disaster relief. So if you're in Western North Carolina and you're still struggling with your FEMA paperwork, we might be able to help with that and a number of other things. So please visit our website if you need other assistance. As Marissa said, we are not your attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not giving you personally legal advice. I'm not taking your case. I'm teaching you how to do it yourself if you want to. This is really important for my ethics rules and just for you to understand that this presentation is to help you help yourself rather than you having to pay somebody else to figure out how to do this. So what are we going to do today? The first thing we're going to do is make sure that this is the right filing for you. There are different kinds of divorces. There are different things that you can seek in divorces. And we're going to make sure that doing this quote unquote do it yourself is the way for you to go. If it is the way for you to go, then we're going to look at what information you need, and we're going to look at filling out the forms to get them filed, how you can file those forms, and how you actually get a judgment signed. I know that is a lot of stuff there, but we're going to get through it. I don't have that many slides, and I should have plenty of time for questions at the end. I have the Q&A box open, so if you're viewing this on Zoom, please feel free to put questions in the Q&A as you go, and I'll try to answer any of them that I see live. And then, as Marissa said, we'll look at the Facebook questions at the end. But please understand, if you ask a question that is really specific to your situation, you say, well, this is who I am, and this is my situation, and this is what I want to do. I can't answer that question because that would be me giving you personal legal advice. And like we said, I'm not your lawyer. So let's talk about whether or not this filing is right for you personally. So this is called a simple divorce. And a simple divorce can be right for you if you or your spouse have lived in the state of North Carolina for at least 6 months. Okay? If you have not been here that long, then this is not for you, or you're at least going to have to wait until one or the other one of you has been here for 6 months. It can be right for you. Like I said, if your answer is no, it may still be right for you, but you're going to have to wait until that 6 months gets here. Have you been living separate and apart from your spouse for an entire year? Now, this is one of those things that has a legal definition. Like, you may consider yourself separated, but this means that you have been in a different location and you have not had any kind of try again periods. You cannot live in the same house and be separated, even if you're living in separate bedrooms, even if you're living on different floors of the house. If you are at the same address, then this is not that you have not been separated long enough. Again, a simple divorce may be right for you, but not until you hit that 1 year. Now, what that also means is like if you're close, so it's what is today? Today is February 20th. If you and your spouse separated on March 17th last year, which would have been St. Patrick's Day, I think, you can go ahead and you can review all this information and you can go through the process of filling the papers out and you can be ready to walk to the courthouse on March 18th. You just can't do it until then. You have to be separate and apart for a year. And then you cannot have tried again. So if you separated in March of 2024 and then, got a little sentimental, around July during that anniversary time, and you went back home for a week. And you're like, maybe we don't have to separate. Maybe we can try again. That resets that clock. It restarts that clock, which means your year now starts in July. Okay. So, but if we've gotten through these two check boxes, like these are the base requirements. Have you been here for 6 months? And have you been living separate and apart for an entire year? Okay, great. Then you can qualify to get a simple divorce. But there's a number of reasons you might still not want that. And I'm going to go over those now. So if you are trying to get money out of your divorce, if you want to get what's called equitable distribution, what that means is splitting up property. Do you own houses together? Do you own cars together? Do you have property that is in both of your names and you don't know who's going to get it and you need a court to tell you who's going to get it? Then the simple divorce is not right for you because you're going to need to have a judge who looks at your property, looks at the money, and balances everything out and decides who gets what. Same thing if you need some kind of post-separation support or if you are seeking alimony, right? Alimony is that thing where you asked for money because your spouse did you wrong, or the post-separation support is because, maybe you sacrificed part of your career and you stopped working to stay home and your spouse has more money than you. If you want the court to give you some of that money, you should not be filing for a simple divorce. You're really going to want to talk to an attorney because once you have filed for this, once you file for a simple divorce and you get your simple divorce, you can't then go back to court and ask the court to split your property up. The court's going to say, no, you're divorced. This is your problem now. We're not going to do it in a divorce action. So an entry of divorce judgment absolutely impacts your ability to divide property. Like I said, you need to talk to an attorney if you want to do this. Now, what a simple divorce does not affect is custody rights. So you can file a simple divorce and, you and your spouse may even have an agreement about the kids right now. Like maybe we just need to get this done. We haven't been living together for a while. Maybe somebody wants to get remarried, or maybe somebody really wants to get that other person off of their taxes. But you've got a parenting plan or whatever. You don't need to worry about custody, and you get your simple divorce. And then somebody falls off the wagon, and then you need to go get a custody case. You can always still file a custody case. So that is one thing that you don't have to worry about, that sort of thing. So that's one thing you can do. You can still get a simple divorce and not have to worry about custody. You can also get a simple divorce and not have to worry about child support. Child support has nothing to do with a divorce, with custody of a child, with any kind of court case, because child support, you apply to child support enforcement for that. And they look at your money and they look at your spouse's money and they figure out how much is owed. And the other parent, the paying parent, they don't ever have to see that child again if they don't want to, or if a court says they can't, but they might still have to pay child support. So the divorce action doesn't have an effect on that, okay? So once you've decided, like you say, okay, this is right for me. Let's just stick with the example of we've got a couple, and maybe they even have kids, but they've been apart for a while, and they just maybe for financial reasons or just to get it done with, they just need to get a divorce. Nobody's fighting about this. Nobody's saying, you cheated on me, or you did me wrong, or you took this, or you did that. We just need the divorce. We don't have to divide property. We don't care about that. I've got my car. They've got their car. We didn't even own a house. We were just renting. if you're all of those things and you're ready to go, now let's look at the information that you need to put together to do this, okay? I do see that there is a question in the Q&A. I'm going to get to I will answer that much later in the presentation when we start talking about the mechanics of what happens in court. All right, so gathering the information that you need. When you sit down, and we're going to look at a really easy way to do this. If you've attended another legal aid presentation, either about divorce or possibly about child custody, there's a part of the presentation where we look at a lot of forms. We're not going to do that in this presentation. We're going to look at what the state has a way for you to do this online, and that's what we're going to look at. So before you sit down to go through this process, before you sit down to do this, this is all the information that you're going to need. You need all this information about you. Obviously, you need your full legal name. You need your address. You need your marriage license if you still have it. If you don't, the Register of Deeds in the county where you got married will have it. And you want this for the information that's on the license, for the specific dates, for the county, for the addresses that were used then. You will need your children's full names and birth dates if you share children with your spouse. If you have kids that don't belong to your spouse and your spouse did not adopt those kids, you don't need that. And then you need to know where your clerk of court is in the county where you want to file. So if you want to, if you live in Orange County and your spouse lives in Durham County and you say, I would rather file in Durham County because I actually live closer to that courthouse, that's fine. You just need to know where the location of that part is, okay? And then you need information about your spouse. You need to know their full name and you must know their current address. You have to know where they live because you have to know how to serve them the lawsuit. You also need to know what their military status is. Are they active? Are they inactive? Or if they have never served? And there's going to be a form that we're going to look at when we fill this stuff out online that will show you how to find that out if you're not sure. But the point of this is that we're not going to allow a divorce to be entered against somebody who's serving overseas when they never know anything about it. Okay, so that's why you have to know about that. All right, I do see a question in the Q&A that we can answer. So if two parties own a house together, but they agree that one person is just going to keep the house, can you do a simple divorce? Yes, but I would tell you that you probably want to at least talk to an attorney about the ownership status of that house. Because if you do get a divorce and the house is still in both people's names, and then somebody wants to sell it and somebody else doesn't want to sell it, then that divorce can turn real sour because now you can't go back to court and ask a judge to order who gets to actually have control over that house. So if you're going to make agreements about property, doing property transfers before you do a divorce is best. So taking one spouse off of a car title. If only one person is going to have that car, then let's take the other person off the title. If everybody's fine with that, let's just take the other person off the title. Let's make sure, because that can affect your insurance, right? That can make your insurance go down if your spouse is a bad driver. So you want anything like that, any property that is jointly owned, you want to try to get it separately owned before you do a divorce, just to protect yourself later. Because everything may be okay right now, and it might not be okay later, and you kind of have to plan for that. All right, so once you have gotten any of this information that you needed, if you aren't sure about the address, let me go ahead and address this because somebody always asks, what if I don't know where they are? There's a couple different ways you can try to find this. You can try the tax office in the county where you think that person lives, because if they own any property, there'll be a tax listing for them. If they own a car or they own a house, you should be able to locate them via the tax records and get an address so that you can serve them that way. If you're to the point though where you're having to think about getting a private detective to find somebody, go talk to a lawyer because they have ways of finding people that are less public that you may not be able to. But the other option that you have is always just doing a background check on somebody. So if you've got kids and you think about I'm not going to hire a nanny or a babysitter until I do a background check on them, you can use the same purpose. You can use the same background check on your spouse just to try to find them, to see if there's a public record that can say, hey, this is where this person is now, because maybe they got a speeding ticket 2 weeks ago and this is the address that they gave when they got the ticket. So you can do it that way. That will cost you money, but that is an option that you can take. All right. So other things that you're going to need in addition to the information, you're going to need the ability to print, or you're going to need a way to take your files to be printed out somewhere. Public library is awesome for this. Now, I would not suggest that you fill this filing out online at a public library, or if you do, talk to the librarian to make sure that when you're done with the computer that they clear the history of it so that none of your personal information is still on that computer, okay? It's better if you can fill it out yourself and then just take it there, like on a flash drive or something like that, to be printed. You're going to need a notary, and you're going to need to be able to pay for your notary. So you're going to need now most banks will notarize things for you. If you are a member of that bank, they may charge you, they may not charge you. It's going to depend on the bank. Or you may just find a notary public who's willing to do it. One of the most dependable notary publics that you're going to find are at used car dealerships. They always have notaries at used car dealerships and are often willing, if you call them, to say, hey, you guys got a notary there. Can I come pay 10, 15 bucks to have somebody notarize something for me? They might try to sell you a car while you're there, but it is a good way to get it done if you are trying to find a good notary. Because a number of the documents that we're going to look at, your signature has to be notarized. So you're not going to be able, excuse me, it's been snowing for a couple days here, I'm a little under the weather. You're not going to be able to just print it out and sign it. You're going to have somebody witness your signature. You're going to need to know where the closest location of a post office to your clerk of court is. Because once you turn those papers in, you're going to have to mail them back. You're going to have to mail some of them out. So you're going to want to know where the post office is. And in some situations, you might have to have an e-filing account, which we're going to look at that when we look at the forms. About 60 counties in North Carolina now are accepting filings on the computer. And this is good news for you because if they accept the filing on the computer, then you don't have to print anything out. Or you may only have to print one copy out instead of 3 copies. But we'll talk about that when we get there. But just be aware that that might be something that you have to do. But we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so there's 2 ways to file. Like I said, you can download all the forms, which is a long list of forms from the internet. You can fill out each individual form, and you can take the whole stack to the clerk of court. But this is kind of like taxes. You don't really want to fill out your taxes by downloading all of the blank forms and hoping that you fill it out right, okay? Does not really work. So what we're going to do is look at North Carolina Guide and File. This is an interview that will take, it says an hour on the website. If you have all of your information in front of you, it's going to take less time than that. The interview, like I said, it's going to be shorter. Then it gives you the ability to print all the forms when you're done and the instructions to tell you what to do with it afterwards. This is my preferred method. This is how I would tell people to do it if they needed to do it, because you fill out the interview and then the system fills out the forms for you so that you're not having to worry about, did I do the right form? It's kind of like, getting H&R Block for your taxes. You give them all the information and then they fill out the forms. This is very similar to that. So we're going to look at Guide and File right now. I'm going to check the Q&A because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to minimize my slide presentation and we are going to look at an actual filing on the internet. We're going to do a simulated filing. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like, but let me check the Q&A here really quickly. Let's see. All right, I'm going to answer that in a minute. Okay, there's a couple of questions here that are in the Q&A that are really specific to your individual situation. They're so specific that I cannot answer them because they would be giving legal advice, though I would tell you that it looks like both of you should probably at least consult an attorney to check and be sure before you do anything. And I see the question about the timing and getting certified mail. I see that question. We're going to get to that way later in the presentation. I've not forgotten about that question. All right. So we are going to look at an imaginary case of the Blue Bloods. All right. So we're going to do a little simple walkthrough. And if you'll give me just a minute, I'm going to switch my screen. All right. Can everybody see my browser? Marissa, can we see my browser?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So Marissa put the address for this in the chat. But if you just Googled North Carolina Guide and File, you would find this. But this is a place where you can go and do a number of different court filings yourself without having to download and fill out all of the forms. So you can see there's a list here of a bunch of different things. There is a divorce. There is a adult name change. There is appealing an eviction. There is filing an eviction. So you see there's a number of different things that you can do here. We're only going to be focused on the absolute divorce. So we're going to look here at the absolute divorce. Now this takes just a little bit. It's a little slow to get going because it's loading everything. But here's the interview menu. And like I said, we're going to do a whole pretend filing while we're sitting here so that you guys can see what it looks like. I have my little piece of paper in front of me that has all of my information on it that I need. So I'm ready to go. All right, so let's go ahead and hit start. Now, I will say that there is going to be an option here. We're going to do the divorce part, and then we're going to do what's called the petition to proceed as an indigent. This is where you tell the court, hey, I really need to get this divorce, but I can't afford it. I cannot afford it. So that's where you can fill out an additional form to say, this is what I would like to do. Please don't make me pay for it. So we'll look at both of those things. So let's get this started. Now you can see over here on the right, we have an option to save our work and sign in and log in and all this. You do not have to create an account to do this. However, if maybe you got a kid running around and you think you're going to get stopped or somebody's going to step on your keyboard and accidentally close your browser, if you do create an account, it will let you save your work as you go. But I'm not going to sign in. We're just going to do one out here. And by filling it out, you're not filing anything. You're not telling the court, I'm doing this right now. You're just doing the interview to fill out the papers. As you can see, it's going to ask you interview questions. It's going to use the answers to fill out the forms that you need. And again, here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It even warns you, when you finalize the divorce, you will not make any future claims for support, alimony, property distribution, or anything. So if there's any money here, then you need to fight over it. This is not for you. And it's trying to tell you that this is not for you. All right, so we're going to keep going. All right, so it's going to give you a list of steps that we're going to do. We're going to go through the questions. It's going to give you a number of little informational pop-ups as you go. I'm not going to look at as many of those, but they're there if you need them. It shows you what is required. It's telling you, hey, make sure that you get everything right. If you have questions, you need to talk to a lawyer. There is a number on here. Now, Legal Aid does not provide divorce help. We don't file divorces. However, you can call the North Carolina Lawyer Referral Service. And they will match you with an attorney, or they can give you some suggestions for attorneys who actually do what you're looking for. It's a little tough now to actually really find attorneys and know that they're going to be giving you the service that you need. It's, at least when we used to have phone books, they were broken down and the ads would say what it was that they did. And sometimes that's not as easy. But the Lawyer Referral Service says, okay, you live in this county. These are the attorneys in your area who do this work. And would you like to get a consultation with, any one of them? So that's what that is for. Once you've read over this, it's trying to tell you, you're just filling out forms here. This website is not giving you legal advice, just like I'm not. So if you're not sure, you should stop and talk to a lawyer. And you have to tell them that you agree to that before it will let you continue. And just like I did, it's going to tell you, now it's going to tell you that you can register for an account. You do not have to, though. It will let you continue if you don't do it. It says that it's best if you use Chrome. I'm not using Chrome. I'm using Firefox. So there are definitely a lot of different options here. I think a couple of you already asked about that. You do not have to have an account to be able to fill out these forms. And if you fill it out without being signed in, it isn't going to save it anywhere. So, I tell people sometimes, especially if they're not sure or if they just want to see, to do a dry run and download the documents and then to actually look at them and say, okay, did I get everything right? Is everything on here right? And then if it's not, or you're like, I'm still not sure about this, then you can decide, okay, I need to talk to an attorney. Like I said, if you do sign up for an account, it is free, but you don't have to do it. But if you get stuck in the middle or you have to stop, you'll have to start over when you sit back down. This does not take an hour in my experience, but life happens and something could get in your way. All right, and it's going to give you all of this information that you need. It is very similar to the answers that I gave you to the stuff I gave you a few minutes ago. Marriage, date, and location. This is why you want the marriage certificate. The date you separated, you need a date. It cannot be sometime in January. It has to be the date that you said, okay, we are separated. Now, it doesn't have to be that both parties agree. Okay, I work with a lot of victims of domestic violence who leave their spouses, and that other spouse may say, well, no, we're still together. What are you talking about? It only requires one person to want to leave the marriage for that separation to be good. But that you still have to have a date so you can say, I know this is when I left. The name you want to use after the divorce is final if you would like to change your name. Ladies, if you want to change your name back to your maiden name or a different name, you can do that as part of this filing. You can go ahead and request that with the court. You do not have to, but you can, as part of this filing, you can go ahead and request that you revert to your former name. And then if you have a separation agreement, and I don't suggest this, but if you downloaded something off the internet and everybody just agreed and signed it, even if you signed it in front of a notary, you're going to need a copy of that. And there are some, depending on how you fill these forms out, the court may look at it and say, okay, well, that's what you agreed to, so that's what I'm going to put in the order. And so you need a copy of that if you have one. If you're going to fill out that indigent petition, where you say, court, I really need this divorce, but I can't pay for it right now, you're going to need the rest of this information. You're going to need how much money you make, either in your job wages, if you are on Social Security or you're drawing a pension or you're self-employed. You're going to need any government benefits that you get. So if you're on disability or any other kind of assistance. So all the money you have coming in the house, you're going to need to know that. And you're going to need how much goes out of the house. What are you paying in rent? What are you paying for your cars? What are you paying for your food, your utilities, all of these things? And then the value of any property that you own that you could sell to pay for an attorney. All right, so you're going to have to know kind of all those things. Now, this is only if you're going to ask to file it for free. If you're not going to ask to file it for free, then you don't need to worry about this whole big piece of information down here. All right, so we'll keep going. This is the same stuff that I just said at the beginning. Is this interview right for you? All the same requirements. It tells you this is not going to help you with custody. This is not a separation agreement. This is for the divorce. This is not for the separation. It won't help you with child support. It won't help you with spousal support or dividing things or getting attorney's fees from somebody else if you end up having to hire someone. So now it's going to ask us to make sure that we're really supposed to be here. So we're going to look at the Blue Bloods. I said we were going to look at them. So we're going to look at Dexter and Caroline. Dexter and Caroline, yes, they have lived in North Carolina for more than 6 months, and they have been separated for that 1 year and 1 day. And at least Caroline believes that the separation was permanent. We'll say Dexter does too, though. These are not going to be ugly people. These are just going to be people that need a divorce. Do you want to receive support from your spouse? Well, we're going to say that we're Caroline in this situation, and she's going to say no. Okay, great. If Caroline says yes, look at what happens. It says, don't do this. This filing is not for you. You need to talk to a lawyer. But we're going to say no. And then, do we need a court to divide property? I should have also said this back a bit. It's not just property, it's also debt. So if you have a lot of marital debt, if you have a mortgage or something like that, and you need the court to decide who owes that money, even though both of your names are currently on it now, not for you, okay? So we're going to say no. And has there been any private written agreement about marital issues such as child custody, support, or any kind of property division? that says, and this is really specific, this is lawyer language, does that agreement somewhere on there say that it must be incorporated into a divorce judgment? Because what that means is it says when you signed it, at the time you signed it, you intended for it to be what happened in the divorce court. Now, if you look at it, if you have one and you say, I'm not sure, you need to talk to a lawyer. If you have one and it doesn't have this language in it, then you can say no. But if you have one that has that language in it and you're happy to keep it like it is, you're happy for it to for everything that's in that document to be okay, then you're gonna say yes, this is what you want. Now again, it says you need to talk to a lawyer first, because like especially if you downloaded that document off the internet or you guys tried to write it yourself, if you're not lawyers, it could have come from another state that North Carolina is going to say, oh, no, there's mistakes in that. This doesn't work for us. So we're going to say that Caroline and Dexter do not have one of these. So it's going to stop yelling at us about what we can and can't do. So we've decided that we've met all the qualifications and we're going to keep going. All right, so now is when we need the information. So I'm going to put some made up stuff in here. So we're going to have Caroline, blue blood, and then all right, so there's Caroline's information, and she is in Orange County. All right, so we've put all of her stuff in here. So when did you move to North Carolina? Well, we're going to say that she's been here her entire life. So we're going to go, I don't know, we'll make her in her 40s. We'll say that she was born in 1980. All right, so we'll say the 60s. There we go. And then we're not going to put a real phone number in here, and it will let us do that because we're just seeing what this looks like right now. And you do not have to put, oh, I missed a number here. You do not have to put an email address in. You can just keep going. And then as soon as this loads, it is going to ask us questions about the person we want to divorce. All right, so we got Dexter. All right, and we do know Dexter's current address because they moved out a while ago, but he just moved down 15501. He just lives in Durham, which is, maybe 10 miles away from where she is. And you notice it's making us pick his state because we said we lived in North Carolina. We've always been here. So we have to make sure that we get his state right. Right. And so he's in Durham County. And this means you can file in either one of these counties. You can file where you live, or you can file where the other person lives, whichever is easier for everybody involved. And again, we're going to say that Dexter was also born in North Carolina in 79. So he's a little bit older. All right, and so we keep going. And you can see, like, this is all the info. If you were doing the forms for this, you would be having to put this on 7 or 8 individual forms, okay? Now, the next page is going to ask about questions about whether or not Dexter is in the military. The law says that you have to disclose the military status. I already explained why that is, because they're not going to let Caroline run and divorce Dexter while he is in active service. They just will not do it. There's a law in North Carolina, and that's true for any lawsuit. You can't file any, you can't get judgment in any lawsuit in North Carolina if if the person you're trying to sue is deployed. Okay. Now we know that, let's see. All right, we don't have any copies of any orders because we're going to say he's not in the military. He's not in military service. And there's a place, again, if you're not sure. So let's say, I've definitely had clients who said, I haven't seen my husband in 10 years. I haven't seen my wife in 10 years. And they're not sure. There's a website where you can go and check what the military status of somebody is. You can see where they're at. And so I strongly encourage you, if you're in that situation where it's been a while and you're not sure, to go check here, because when you print these out, you print this form out and you sign it in front of that notary, you're swearing that it's true. So you want to make sure that you've done your best to do your homework to make sure you get it right. All right, so we're going to pretend for a minute that we did use this website. No, we're not, because I don't have it downloaded. If you go and you put in his name and his social, it's going to spit out a PDF for you to be able to upload. So we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to say no. But we'll just say I've known him all my life and he was never in the military. And that's enough. You can swear to that if you know that that is true. So we'll keep going. All right. And then where did they get married? Well, we'll say that they got married in Chapel Hill. Maybe they met when they were college students at Carolina. So we'll say Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And we'll say that they got married in 2010. That seems good. All right. So we've picked a day. Date we separated. So we know it's got to be in 2024. And just to make it clean, we'll say January 1st. We'll say everybody made a New Year's resolution. And so we know that that's at least 1 year and 1 day. And then we'll say, yes, there is a minor child. We'll say that there's one. And we will say that she was born in 2012. All right. Now, again, remember, just because it's asking us for this information, it does not mean that it's going to do anything with custody. It just wants the information, because a judge doesn't want to issue a divorce if he at least wants to know, or she wants to know that there is a child involved, just to make sure that everybody takes the appropriate steps with respect to that child, right? Because nobody wants the divorce to leave a kid out in the cold, right? All right, so we'll say that she's going to file her case in Durham County because, like I said, she feels like she lives closer to that courthouse. Now, once she has decided this might be a good time for her to say, I should maybe check with the Durham County Clerk of Court and see if there's anything special that I need to do. You can call, because there are some places that are not on e-filing that still even have divorce kits for people. That used to be something that clerk's offices would give out. Some places may have special requirements. You may want to check on that. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I just wanted to, that's the first time I wanted to say, you should check with the clerk in the county that you want to file and just make sure you're following the right steps once you've done all the forms. All right, Caroline does not have a lawyer, so we're going to keep going. If it says yes, it's going to want all this lawyer's information, because they're going to put all your, they're going to hang this on your lawyer. They're going to make sure your lawyer knows this has been filed and that your lawyer is in court with you. And honestly, if you have an attorney, then you should just let them do this for you anyway. Because if they have to go to court for you, they're going to charge you anyway. So you might as well let them control it. Like I said, there's a couple times where it's a little slow to load, but that's just because it's filling out those forms in the background. All right, we're not going to ask for any kind of spousal support. We don't have any kind of settlement agreement. Like, if you do, but any of these options you can pick. You may have already filed for spousal support. Like, maybe you did talk to an attorney to make sure that you protected your home or your bank accounts. But now that that's all taken care of, you're just ready to do the divorce yourself. Okay, it's just making sure. You see, it's asking all these questions about money because it really wants to make sure that you don't file this if it isn't what you should do. All right, so not asking for any kind of support, not asking for any kind of property distribution. So like I said, this was an amicable parting. They just need to be in different places. All right, do we want to change our name after the divorce? Sure. So we'll say, there we go. Now she's picked her, she's gone back to her old last name. All right. So now we're done with the interview. Like I said, I know it said that it would take an hour, but it clearly did not. It didn't take us very long at all. But we're going to go over some of the other things that you might need to file. Now, it does tell you right here, the filing fee is going to be $225. And if you requested a name change, that's going to be an additional $10. And that covers the change at the Register of Deeds office. So if you either cannot afford this right now or don't think you're ever going to be able to afford this, then you're going to look at this petition to proceed as an indigent. But maybe you just want to save up. Maybe you're not quite to your year, but this is how much it's going to cost you to do the filing. You don't have to pay anything after this, so you don't have to pay. It's not like criminal court when you have to pay costs of court when you go to court for your speeding ticket or anything like that. You just pay the filing fee and that's it. So that's what the cost is going to be, and then it's going to ask us, do we want to fill out this petition? We'll go through this really quickly just so that everybody can see what it looks like. Again, it wants you to fill out the forms. Okay, we're going to say she can't afford the fees, and we want to complete a little interview to ask, to find out if she is going to be able to get this. We'll say that she's getting public benefits. We'll say that she is getting Social Security income. And we're going to say no to this because she doesn't have a legal aid attorney right now, but we'll just say that she's getting public assistance. All right. That's it. Right there, we're done with all of the forms that we could possibly need to file. Now, it's going to ask you here if you want to file this electronically. If you do, it's going to kick you over here to this other website. This is the electronic filing website. And I cannot sign into this and start filing papers here because this is my real lawyer account. And this is what would make it real. And especially if you're doing this for the first time and you're not sure, or you're trying to do a test run, you want to see what all the forms look like, we're going to say no. If you say yes, it's going to say, okay, you have to go register for an account for this. You need to go sign up. And I'm a little disappointed with the website here because it doesn't actually give you a link to this. But this is the landing page. And Marissa, if you would put this in the chat, just the base eCourts website so that people can get that link if they need it. So we're going to say no. And the way that website works is that you create an account and you pick a county where you want to file and you tell it what you want to file, and then you upload all your PDFs, okay? But you still have to get them signed. You still have to get them notarized. And so we're just going to go through looking at the forms to make sure that everybody can see what they look like. So again, we're going to say that we're not going to file electronically right now. All right, and now it's going to tell us what are our next steps. This is one of my favorite things about this is it's going to give you instructions on what to do next. Now, this is a customer service survey. You do not need to finish it. You can just scroll right on past it and go to next. You don't have to give them any information that you don't want to. All right, so our interview is complete and we're going to proceed. And now it's thinking because it's generating all the PDFs that it's going to give us that we can take and go file. Let me check the Q&A really quickly. All right, there's a person in the chat who's asking a question about separation. I am sorry, that is too specific. I cannot answer that because it would be giving you legal advice. That's an unusual situation. I would talk to an attorney. All right, so now here it's going to tell you what you need to do. You're going to look at everything here because this is everything that you have set out in the complaint, and you're going to be able to look at all of your forms. So let's see what we want to look at. Let's look at the complaint. We will look at this. All right, and let me pull the PDF over there so that everybody can see it. All right, so you can see this looks like what it would look, well, it looks sort of what it would look like if I, as a paid attorney, sat and wrote a complaint out for you. So it's made this form for you. It said, this is where we live. This is how long I've lived here. This is where he lives. It's how long he's lived here. This is when we were married. This is when we were separated. We do have one kid. Here she is on here. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for property. And here's the name that I would like to go back to. And then this is where you're saying, court, I would like you to dissolve the marriage. And I would like you to return me to my prior name. And you can see this is the first page that you're going to have to not sign until you have until you're in front of a notary. Okay, so you can see these are all like this. And in that big menu that we're looking at, you can look at all of the forms. You can look at the judgment. Now I'm going to go through some of these individually when we go back to our slides. But And then the last thing, I will pull this up. We will look at the next steps because this is your instructions after you complete the interview. So what do you do? It tells you these are for your, again, it's going to continue to warn you about not filing this inappropriately. Because let's say that you do file and you get separation date wrong or you're filing too early. The court is not going to hear it. They're going to look at the filing and they're going to dismiss it. They're going to say, no, this is you are not eligible for divorce yet. You're probably going to have to sit in court for a day for a judge to tell you that. You're going to lose that $225 filing fee, and then you're going to have to do it again when you have gotten to that 1 year. Okay, so it's going to give you all of this, and then it's, hey, here's all of your forms. Look at them. It's okay if some things are blank, okay? This is how many forms you have. Here's a little checklist to make sure that you got them all, okay? And then it's got, here's how you get yourself into court. Here's what you need to bring to court for the judge to sign, okay? And it's like 11 pages of how to. And this is far more useful and probably more information than I could give you in 2 hours because it's nice, it's short, and it should answer most of your questions, okay? It's going to tell you what the clerk is going to do. It's going to tell you what you're going to do. And it's really worth doing the interview just to get the instructions to make sure you understand what the process is going to be. All right, but after that, now that we're done with that, we're going to go back to our slides. All right, so like I said, there are a couple of alternatives for filing. You can still download these forms traditionally, and you can get your list. And I know this will be in the. I know this will be posted so you guys can see this. I don't see any reason for you to do this unless you're trying to help somebody else do this who just cannot use a computer and they have to have the paper forms. In that case, I really would call the clerk for to make sure that you're doing everything right. I see a question in the chat about property ownership and assets. I definitely can't answer that question. I would, if you're concerned about this, or if you're not sure, a lot of it's going to go into about money coming in and money going out. It's the clerk's decision at the end of the day whether or not they will let you file for free. And so they may ask you questions. Like, you may be able to own a home if you have a really big mortgage. You may be able to own a car if you're still paying it out. It really all comes down to how much money is coming in and how much money is going back out. And so if you're not sure about that, you can talk to an attorney. But at the end of the day, if you file that indigency petition, you request it, you may not get it. And so the court may say, we're not going to do anything else with this until you pay the filing fee. So you at least need to be prepared, or at least think about what would happen if they turn your request to file for free down. All right. So now we are ready to actually file the suit. We've gotten all of our forms. We signed everything in front of the notary the way we were supposed to, and we went and we got our copies. If you're doing this on paper, if you're doing this in a county where you're going to file with physical pieces of paper, you're going to have 3 copies. So you can sign 1 copy in front of your notary and everything, and then you're going to have to go make photocopies of the rest of them. I would encourage you, just lawyer trick, to sign your documents in blue ink, and then when you make photocopies of them, to do black and white copies so that you know which one is the original and which one are the copies. Just for your own knowledge, so you don't get them mixed up at the courthouse. So again, all of these things that it's telling you have to have, these are going to come in your forms package. So if you do that guide and file, all of these forms are going to come out when you download all of your forms, okay? There are some places that want your little summons to be on yellow paper. That's why you want to ask the clerk what color it has to be. I'm not sure if there are still any counties that do this, but there used to be. A long time ago, there were blue pieces of paper and there were yellow pieces of paper, and a clerk wouldn't take it if you didn't have it on the right color paper. But just check with your clerk's office to make sure you got the right ones. So you're going to go to your clerk's office. Again, don't sign anything early. Make sure you've done everything with the notary first. Make sure you have all of your copies, and then go to the clerk of court in your county or where you want to file and hand it in, okay? You're going to pay, we'll just say that Caroline's going to pay the filing fee. So she pays her fee, and the clerk stamps it, puts a this is the date and time this lawsuit was filed, stamp on it. The clerk gives you a file number and says, this is what your number is. You don't have to get your file number. The clerk will do that for you, and they're going to give the extra copies back to you. So now you have to get one of those copies to your spouse. And there are 3 different ways that you can do that. You can do it by the sheriff, you can do it by certified mail, or you can do it by publication. Now, if you cannot now, when you're in the clerk's office, they may say, okay, give us another $10 or $15 for us to attach to the complaint, and we'll leave it for the sheriff, and the sheriff will serve it. That is the default position in North Carolina, that a sheriff serves your lawsuits. There's a lot of funny movies about people hiring process servers. We don't do that in North Carolina. That is not something that we do here. The certified mail, that is kind of a backstop option if the sheriff can't find that person and they come back and say, hey, he wasn't at this address, you're going to try again. Then you can send it certified mail. That's the mail with the little green card. And then when that person receives it, they sign the green card and it gets mailed back to you. And then you have to take it back to the court, which we'll look at in a minute. Publication, there is a way to serve someone by publishing in the newspaper. However, if you think that's going to be the option that you need to talk to an attorney, okay? Because it's easy to mess that up. And it's easy to pay too much for it, or just to not get it right if that's the option that you need, and you don't want it to tank your lawsuit. So, sheriff, sometimes this process can be done at the clerk's office, or sometimes the clerk will send you, to the sheriff's department and tell you to ask for the civil process desk so that they can get it served. You're going to give them one of those copies of the complaint and 2 of the summons copies, and then you're going to pay the fee to them. So now, if your indigency petition was granted and you didn't have to pay at the clerk's office, you also will not have to pay at the sheriff's office. But if you had to pay at the clerk's office, you're also going to have to pay at the sheriff's office. So once you do that, the deputy will then try to go out and give the defendant the paperwork. They'll write the date and the time that they handed it to them on the summons, and then it'll go back to the court so that everybody knows, hey, this person got served. All right. You will need to know the date the defendant was served. It's going to be on the piece of paper. The sheriff is going to write the date and time down. But when you go to court, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's possible that the judge is going to say, okay, when did they get served? And they're going to flip through the file. But it's great if you already know the answer to it and you can tell them, oh, okay, this is when that person got served. I know this is when they got served. So you want to just be able to, it's good for you to know too, just so that you know what's going on in your own case, right? All right, so once we have looked at sheriff's service, like I said, certified mail is where you take it to the post office and you pay the certified mailing fee. You fill out that green card. That green card has to come back to you as the plaintiff so that you know, hey, this person has been served. And when it comes back to you, you have to fill out another piece of paper. You have to take another form out. And then you have to fill it out. You take the green card to it, and then you sign it in front of a notary, and you have to take it back to the clerk's office and say, okay, he was served. He accepted it by mail, okay? And so that's an extra step that you have to take. Again, this is where we're getting kind of into the weeds a little bit, and if you're not sure if you can do this, or you're not sure if you want to do this, or you're worried about whether or not you're going to get it wrong, then maybe you should talk to an attorney, right? You just want to make sure that you are dealing with it. Now, when the sheriff serves somebody, they're going to go knock on somebody's door and say, here, you're being served. And they're going to hand that person the papers. And that, you gave them 2 copies of that summons. They're going to keep 1 copy of it. And there's a place on the back of it for that officer to sign his name or her name and say, this is the date and the time that I served this person. Now, it does not matter if that spouse of yours takes those papers, standing right in front of the sheriff, and tears them in half. Says, I don't care. Or tries to throw it back at the sheriff. Or tries not to hand it to the sheriff. If the sheriff has seen that person and attempted to hand it to him, they're going to say that person was served, that they left it. And oftentimes, if it's a situation like that, the sheriff's even going to make a note on the back of it and say, this is what happened. So that, you will be able to know. So as long as that sheriff gets eyes on somebody, they've been served. If somebody gets that service and you just never get a green card back, I mean, the post office is a little slow right now. I think everybody knows that. And you're concerned that you're just not, they haven't been served, they're not going to be served, you need to talk to an attorney so that you can get them properly served, especially if you really need this divorce for some reason. Go ahead and talk to an attorney and say, look, I did everything. And, the sheriff couldn't serve him, my green card never came back, please help. So that they can help you get it taken care of. All right. All right, we already talked about that, so I'm gonna skip over that. This is the publication option. Like I said, this is a last resort, and I again say you need to do the sheriff first. If the sheriff comes back and says, they weren't at this address, try and find another address for them and ask the sheriff to try again. If you can't do that, then you do the certification. Then, if you have to do publication, you need to, one, talk to your clerk because there are different counties that require different things in terms of publication. But again, I really think you should talk to an attorney if you're looking to have to serve somebody like this. Because if you do it wrong, but you go to court and the court grants your divorce and like, okay, this all seems in order. And then the defendant comes back and says, this wasn't done right. And maybe sometime in that intervening period, you've gotten remarried. Guess what? Your new marriage isn't valid anymore, and your old one's still there, and now everybody's mad about it. So if you're down to where you're thinking about having to serve by publication, then you really should talk to an attorney. All right, but let's say that Caroline has gotten Dexter served. He was happy to take the papers. He signed for it. He's good. He wants the divorce just as bad as she does. So now it is time to get the entry of judgment. And there's a couple different ways. It depends on where you are as to how you might have your divorce entered. In some places, a clerk can enter the divorce. In most places, you're going to go in front of a judge. And both one or both of you can go. You may be asked to give testimony or you may not. But if you're not fighting about it, then it's probably just going to be the judge confirming all the information on the filing, confirming that you are who you say you are, that your spouse is who they say they are, and then granting the divorce to make sure that everything is in order. The procedure can vary from place to place. So you want to talk to your clerk. It doesn't cost anything to ask the clerk a question, to say, I would like to do this. What do I need to do? What are my next steps? What happens after I have filed this? So when you go to court, you are after you've done your service, you're going to have to get a court date first, and you have to wait 30 days from let's say that the sheriff served Dexter, and the sheriff put January 1st, 2025 on his service thing, and turns it back in. Caroline has to wait until at least January 31st or probably February 1st to then go to court. Go to the clerk's office and get a hearing date set. Again, this is going to be different in every county, but the form package that you filled out and downloaded is going to have given you a notice of hearing and a certificate of service. So you may just have to go to the clerk's office and say, I need to set this for hearing. When is family court? What day should I put on here so that we can get this onto the court calendar so that a judge can hear it, okay? I work in 7 different counties in North Carolina. Every one of them has a different way of putting things on the calendar. So you're going to want to check and make sure that you're ready to get that going. For this part of the process, and again, this is in your directions, when we get in front of the judge, we're going to talk about all the documents you're going to take with you, and you need 4 copies of those, not 3. But we'll look at those individually here in a minute. You will, if the defendant is not there, need to mail the documents to the defendant after court so that they know, hey, this has been done. It doesn't have to be certified mail, but it is your responsibility to mail it to them after you get out of court. So when we're talking about notice of a hearing, like I said, this is just you saying, Mr. Clerk, Madam Clerk, I need you to give me a day to put this in front of a judge. This is when I mailed this. This is when they were served. I want to make sure that they've had enough time to get it. And so, can we do 45 days? Can we do, just to make sure that we have enough space between the two. Okay. So once you get your court date, you know when you're going to go to court. Now it's time to get your stuff together. Okay. In all those forms that we looked at a few minutes ago, there's a judgment of divorce. There's a certificate of divorce. And then you're going to need to take a stamped envelope with the defendant's address on it so that you are prepared to mail them their copy if you need to, okay? You need 4 copies of the judgment and then 1 copy of the certificate. The judgment is the court order. The judgment is what says you two are divorced. The certificate is what goes to the Register of Deeds office to say this marriage license is canceled, y'all aren't married anymore. Okay, so that's the difference between those 2 documents. So you're going to fill out, again, you've already got the sample forms. You've already seen us do this. So now we've gotten all the way here. We've been talking for, an hour and 15 minutes. Now we're going to get to court, finally. When you go to court, like I said, you need to bring your copies from the guide and file package. Dress at least business casual. But if you got a suit, wear a suit, right? You're going to court, you're going to be there with other people who are doing the same thing that you're doing. You're going to be there with attorneys. You might be sitting there a while, but dress business casual, just, to show respect to the court because you are asking them to do something for you. Get there at least 15 minutes early and just sit and wait. I will tell you from experience, you are not allowed to take your phone into most courtrooms. They have you lock them up in a lockbox outside. So I would bring a book, bring something to do because you're going to be in line. You may not be the first case that gets heard. Court starts at 9:30 and it ends at 5. And you may not get called until 4 o'clock. There's a lunch break in the middle, but you want to make sure that you, aren't falling asleep and you got something to do while you sit there. When your case is called, you're going to go up to the table. You're going to get sworn in just like you were given any other kind of witness testimony. Some judges may want you to sit in the witness stand. Some judges may just let you sit at the table. But if a judge asks you questions, try to talk slowly, try to be clear. I know this is panic-inducing for a lot of people, especially if they've not been in court. It just makes you nervous. There's other people in the room. Just, try to remember to tell yourself to slow down, look over the judge's head or whatever you need to do to get through it. You're going to have your judgment in front of you, that judgment that you filled out that was in your forms. You can use that to guide your testimony. So you can say, hey, I live in Orange County. I was born here in wherever, I've been here for 20 years. Just go down the list and read the judge all the things as to why you should get your divorce. And then it will make everything go a lot easier, okay? Again, you're going to take all your copies with you for the judge to sign. Now look, you may take those 4 copies and the judge may only sign 1 or 2 of them. It really depends on the place, but you want to be prepared in case you need those multiple copies. Be sure to mail a copy of the judgment on the date that you indicated. So it needs to go in the mail the day the judge signs it. Don't sit on it. Even if it means that you just drop it in the mailbox on your way out. That's why we said to take a stamped envelope with you so that you can just drop it into a box. And so if you're ever asked later, did you mail this on this day? You say, yep, I put it in the box as soon as I walked out of the courthouse. So this is the judgment. Like I said, this is the court order. And then this is the certificate. And the clerk is going to fill out most of this form, but you can see this is the vital records. This looks like a birth certificate. It looks like your marriage license a little bit, right? You can see this is the difference. And so this is what goes to the Register of Deeds, to vital records, to say, okay, this marriage is no longer in place. After the hearing, the judge is going to decide. Right after you're done talking, he's going to decide. He's going to sign your papers. You need to mail it to the defendant if he's not there or she's not there, and keep a copy. So one of these copies is for you. Put it with your safe papers. Put it where you keep your will, or put it where you keep your Social Security card and the birth certificates and your passport. My favorite client in the world, I did a will for a lady who was in her 90s, and she kept all of her important papers in an ammunition box under the bed that her husband had brought home from the Korean War. It doesn't matter what your safe place is, just put it in a safe place. Okay, make sure that you keep it because you may need it, right? You may need it to be able to show, hey, no, you may need to take it to the bank and say, I want to remove this person as a right of survivorship on my account because I'm not married to them anymore, or whatever it happens to be. You're going to want to hold on to this copy so that you have it. If you're going to need to change your name at the DMV, you may want to get a couple more certified copies at the clerk's office. So you take your signed copy with the big judge's signature on it and say, Madam Clerk, I need some certified copies. They'll make a couple of copies for you. They'll charge you, I think, $5 for it so that you can get your driver's license changed and you can get your social security card changed if you need to get that changed. Or if there's any other agency where you need to get it updated. So those are the things that you would want to do after the hearing. All right. So this did not take, I didn't think it would take until 4:30. Let me look at the Q&A and then I will ask Marissa if there are any questions from the Facebook that I need to answer. Okay, answered that. I do see, okay, so somebody asked a question about service. Can the defendant sign an acceptance of service without having to serve them? If that defendant signs an acceptance of service, they are swearing that they received a copy of the papers, which means that they've been served. I do not encourage pro se filers to do that though, because if that person gets to court and says, I just, somebody told me I had court today, I don't know what this person is talking about, then your case is going to get thrown out for service. Acceptance of service is really more appropriate when there are multiple attorneys involved and the other attorney accepts service for their client and files that piece of paper. That saves the sheriff from having to go do it, but it's still an official service. I would not do it as a pro se filer, though. I just don't think it's a good idea because I think it can backfire on you. All right, let's see. All right. Now, I did promise somebody I was going to come back to a question they asked about an hour ago. All right. Okay, so when I said that you had to wait 30 days from the day you mailed it to the day you go to court, it is 30 calendar days. The first day does not count. So the day you put it in the mail or the day that the clerk puts it in the sheriff's basket or you take it to the sheriff's office to ask the sheriff to serve it, that day doesn't count. The next day counts. And then every day from there after is the 30. And if you are going to, you look at your calendar and you see, oh, the 30th day is July 4th. Well, then you're going to have to wait till July 5th, right? You see how this works? If the last day is a weekend or a holiday, then it's going to be the next business day. That would be the first time you can take it into court. Okay, that's a good question. What if your spouse lives far away from you? Do you have to take your filing to where they live to have it served? No. If you take it to the sheriff's department in the county where you filed the lawsuit, so if you filed it where you live, that sheriff will send it to the other county sheriff's office to have it served. Now, it will take a little bit longer because the paperwork has to travel between two agencies, but you do not have to drive it to the sheriff in that county, generally speaking. All right, Marissa, do I have any questions from the Facebook?
No questions on Facebook. I do see someone here on Zoom with their hand raised. Please be aware that you cannot unmute in this forum. So if you have a question for Allison, you need to type it into the chat.
What if your defendant is in a different state? Well, if you live in North Carolina and you have lived here for 6 months, then you do this, the process is just the same. And when you ask to have it served, the sheriff's department will send it to wherever that person lives. I routinely have lawsuits that are served in other states, even though they are filed here. Again, it just takes longer. And there are definitely states that take longer than other states. And so you may definitely, when you go and file, do not get a notice of hearing yet. Wait until that service comes back before you ask the court to set a court date. Because if you get really eager and hot to trot and you set it for that 31st day, that service may be still tied up somewhere trying to come back to you, and you're just going to have the case continued anyway because it hasn't been served yet. So the process is the same. It's just going to take a little bit longer. All right, I don't think I see any other questions.
I think we're all good.
All right, I'll turn it back over to you then, Marissa.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us with a special thank you to Allison for that great presentation and for answering all those questions. If you would like to review anything that was discussed today, we have posted a recording of this event to our Facebook page. It will be immediately available. You can access this recording or recordings of other Listen and Learns with or without a Facebook account at www.facebook.com/legalaidnc. If you would like to register for one of our other Listen and Learn programs, such as Wills and Power of Attorneys, Tenant Rights, Child Custody, you can do so on our website at legalaidnc.org. Thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.